Oil India has a fascinating history that goes back to India's first oil discovery in 1889 in Digboi in Assam. Today, OIL is an integrated exploration, production and refining company with some 19 drilling rigs, 28 worker rigs and expertise across the oil spectrum right onto pipelines. My guest for today, Dr. Ranjit Rath, Chairman and Managing Director of Oil India Limited, is a geoscientist and alumnus of IIT Bombay and IIT Kharagpur. He's a proud recipient of the National Geosciences Award from the President of India, and prior to joining OIL, he was heading the Mineral Exploration and Consultancy Limited under the Ministry of Mines, the Government of India. Among other things, he's worked on applying geosciences and exploration geology in the creation of India's strategic petroleum reserves, a first of its kind initiative of the Government of India, which entailed underground rock caverns for strategic storage of crude oil, a larger intervention towards the country's energy security. Dr. Rath, thank you so much for joining me today. So let me start off with something which I hope is interesting. You're a technologist and an oil technologist, and what's maybe the most interesting technology that you're working on right now in the context of either finding oil or processing it or distributing it in India?
Govind, first of all, thank you very much for having me today. It has been always a pleasure speaking with you, and I remember the brief interactions we had prior to last IEW. It was always encouraging to talk to you. Very right question to start, in fact. From an Oil India perspective, I will tell two things. One, we have recently established through a very, very persistent effort of sustained exploration approach, we have established hydrocarbon in the north bank of Brahmaputra. From a significance point of view, it is immense. All the Assam self-discoveries so far has happened in the southern bank of Brahmaputra, where Oil India operates its field. And it has been always a consistently effort to do seismic, to drilling, and only recently we have established hydrocarbon in the north bank of Brahmaputra, which gives us two signals. One, there are more prospects to explore in the northern bank, where Oil India holds significant amount of open acreage licensing policy driven acreages for exploration. And as a supplement, having established hydrocarbon, I am not saying it's a discovery till we measure it and get it ratified by the government, but establishing hydrocarbon means we are supplementing it with an immediate 3D seismic campaign to establish the structure. This also opens up another area of interest. If you have hydrocarbons in the south bank of Brahmaputra in Assam self, and you have now in north bank, very likely, as the explorationist within me tells me that below the river of Brahmaputra we would have hydrocarbons. Here we are doing two things as far as the technology is concerned. We are adopting something called a multi-lateral well, where at one plinth simultaneously we will be able to operate 5 wells. That's one. Second, we are also planning to adopt something called extended reach drilling, under which about 300 to 3000 to 3500 meter below the river bed with an S bend or a J bend, we will be able to target the hydrocarbon without drilling vertically. So these two things would actually open up more opportunities in terms of exploration and possible discoveries.
So I'll come back to the South Bank in a moment, but for those who perhaps will not know or may not know, there's a history to Oil India Limited and Assam and the first discovery of oil, which goes back obviously more than a century. So tell us about what you found now in the context of the history of Oil India and the oil that
This is very, very interesting question. It is in 1889, oil was discovered through a chance discovery in a place called Digboi, we all know, while the Britishers then were laying a railway line in the northeast part of northeast India in Assam to carry timber and coal from the northeastern coal fields to Dibrugarh to shell it through the Brahmaputra river. So while doing so, in near Digboi, the elephants which are putting the sleepers in the railway track, they got something interesting in their toenails, which was a black liquid. So the Britishers then decided to dig that location, and that's how the name Digboi dig. So that's how Digboi came. And just to give you a context, then the first discovery happened sometime in October 1989, 135 years ago. So we can claim the legacy of Oil India being the one of the oldest E&P company in this part of the globe. Of course, it first was Assam Railway Trading Corporation, then it was Burma Oil, then it was a JV between Burma Oil and Government of India, and in 1980s it became a national oil company. From a contextual point of view, the then discovery happened at a depth of about 186, 180 feet. So that's about 50 meters or so. And today, the discovery that we are doing in South Bank, 5,700 meters, and the North Bank discovery is 4,600 meters. That's what is the pursuit of hydrocarbon. And I must tell you, and I must tell you to the audiences whom I am connecting through this audio visual sequence of yours, there are huge possibilities and opportunities lying there. The only thing is we need to dive more deeper, and we will continue to do so.
So I'm going to come to the Oil India landscape in a moment. But before that, what made you go back to the south bank of Brahmaputra?
We
Or
never
go there in the first place, yeah.
The idea was when Government of India brought in a reform under HELP, Hydrocarbon Exploration Licensing Policy, which was a change from NELP, New Exploration Licensing Policy. NELP was primarily a production sharing contract. HELP was something called a revenue sharing contract, where the operator or the explorer were having the option to choose large areas and then offer the bid. So, having explored extensively in the South Bank, it was very but natural that we must explore the North Bank. So, we acquired large areas under the OLP campaign. That's why I keep telling that the flagship reform of the current dispensation in terms of OLP has opened up, and possibly this will be one such find in the North Bank.
Right. So if now let me look at the landscape, or rather make you look at the landscape for Oil India Limited. So the key activities, of course, is drilling for oil. There is through Numaligarh, you also refine oil and distribute it. But you're also now drilling elsewhere. You're drilling in Andamans. You're drilling elsewhere. I mean, about 6 or 7 locations internationally. So tell us about the paths that Oil India has taken, and from maybe about 2 decades ago, when maybe most of your activities were in this region.
Yes, you are right. Uh, Generally, what has happened is Oil India was having its mining lease, which is petroleum mining lease, or PML, under the nomination acreage in northeastern part of the country, and we had two PMLs juxtaposed to the international border in Rajasthan, the westernmost part of the country. So Oil India has got a diametrically opposite presence, northeast of northeast in Assam and Arunachal, northwest of northwest in extreme border of Rajasthan. And then when we had the opportunity of OLP round, we secured exploration acreages, because that's where you need to work on discoveries. So as part of that, we had about 60,000 square kilometer of area under our exploration acreage, which primarily constitutes about 10,000 exploration acres in Rajasthan, about 15,000 square kilometer in Mahanadi onshore, about 10,000 square kilometer on either side of Andaman Nicobar Island in the offshore asset. We have about 5,000 square kilometer in Kerala Konkan, and some acreage in Tripura, which is profusely gas bearing, and then of course the northern part of Brahmaputra river in Assam. So we started this exploration campaign, and normally exploration cycle would take some time, because first we will have to do seismic, either 2D or 3D, process it, interpret it, identify prospects, and then you plan your drilling campaign. That's a linear thing which was happening. We have recently changed that approach. We said that if you have an exploration acreage, you must attempt to discover to the T. So after having drilled certain wells, we said let's run a supplementary seismic campaign. So this the supplementary seismic campaign and the data that is available we run a study called petroleum system modeling, which was not the case earlier. And this gave us new prospects, and we are now reorienting ourselves for new drilling. So that's why we are having a very strategic approach to exploration. Just to share with you, initially we had planned that we will have 3 wells and 1 contingent well drilling in Andaman, but today we are taking the decision that we would probably drill all the 4 wells. Kerala Konkan, we were looking at 1+1, but the study is indicating that in case the one well will be successful, we might consider the other well. In Rajasthan, we were looking at some blocks to be relinquished, but with the petroleum system modeling study approach, we have identified more prospects to be drilled. So that's the narrative which happens in the petroleum exploration licensing area. There is a bit of exploration which is also happening in the mining lease area, because in mining lease area it is called near surface exploration, because the mining lease area that you have, there will be some fields where you are producing, but there are many such areas which has not yet been approached by virtue of new additional data that is available to you. So we are diving deep, going to the deeper horizons, older formations from a geological point of view, let's say the Eocene formations which is beyond 4,500 meters, to establish hydrocarbon A, B to produce from it. So we are drilling deeper wells, and we are also enhancing the number of wells that we have drilled year on year. This is adding to the growth story of Oil India Limited.
So what are the things that have changed in this? So I'm assuming, obviously, you're saying that there is far more efficiency in the whole pipeline, not pipeline. I mean, that's not the word. I think the whole the process of scouting, zeroing in, drilling, and so if there is more efficiency, so where is that efficiency coming from? So one, I'm guessing, is also because you're taking bigger bets, but I'm assuming the technology.
The operational efficiency comes in from a technology. One is how fast we will do our interlocation movement of the drilling rigs. What has been the top drive driven drilling rigs which is becoming faster? Because the more time you change your bit, that adds to the time. Are we prepared with higher pressure regimes to handle? Because we are drilling deeper. We have also enhanced our workover rigs, because for production, these are all old fields. These were discovered in 1950s, 1970s, 1980s. And as we speak, last couple of years, we are also discovering small fields to maintain a healthy R by P ratio. But overall, if you look at it, we have augmented our resources in terms of drilling rigs. We have augmented our resources in terms of workover rigs, and we have created a kind of a back analysis system where our geology and geophysics team and the reservoir team is supplementing the drilling activity in identifying new drillable locations, which could be new locations in the existing field, or could be infill locations, or could be replacement wells. So we are figuring out any pondes of reservoirs containing hydrocarbons should be tapped.
And if I were to take a step back, you've talked about, let's say, investing 25,000 crores in a whole bunch of capex, including, I'm sure, in drilling activities. So tell us from a top, how does it look now? I mean, all that you said just now, I mean, what is it adding up to in terms of increased barrels per day? Or
See, it's like this. When we look at individual fields, we also do a techno-economic analysis. We establish an NPV. We have certain assumptions made in terms of operational day rates of the drilling rig that we engage, the workover rigs that we engage, the oil prices. We also take a long short view on that. But nevertheless, oil exploration is risk bearing. The Andaman Nicobar campaign is about 2,500 crore, where we are intending to drill about 4 wells, where our idea is to touch about from 100-meter water depth. So from sea bottom to go about 4,000 meters. It gives us 2 dimensions. One, a discovery. 2, if there is a discovery and it's a material discovery, it will change the narrative. In case, let's assume that you don't get discovery in the first one, it opens up the data for the future drillings. In a similar way, we also take our onshore drilling, and we have established more potential in terms of reserve accretion, because that's an annual affair. So, with every development well that we drill, we accrue more resource base and we convert them into reserve class. Now, this is the crude oil story. The natural gas is equally interesting. We are having enough natural gas sitting in the Assam shelf in northeastern area, and we need to work on a restless basis to tap those natural gas resources as well.
And what will that take?
See, till now what was happening, that we were not having enough evacuation facilities, because normally crude
Like
oil
a
we
gas
could have,
pipeline or?
yes, normally crude oil you could have a bowser, you have an early production facility and then you move the crude oil. But natural gas wells are a bit tricky. They're under more than hydrostatic pressure, and once drilled, you have to be very, very careful in case you need to cap it and you are not able to produce. Therefore, we have been very, very, I'll not say constrained, but cautious in our approach. But recently, the Government of India has taken a decision to extend the Indradhanu Gas Grid Limited, which is now being laid under phase 1. It is connecting to Guwahati and then Numaligarh. We are undertaking some upgradation of the Duliajan-Numaligarh pipeline by 31st March. We should be able to complete that. That will help us to ramp up our supply to Numaligarh or to the mainland substantially. And another piece which was earlier, which was happening, and we have taken a very concerted strategical step there. Earlier we used to flare the natural gas. Now the associated gas to produce the crude oil, if you don't have any mechanism, it's a normal thing, it's called technical flare. But we realize that there is a value loss in that. So we have laid a pipeline from Arunachal Pradesh to Assam. There is a place called Kumchai in Arunachal Pradesh to Kusijan near Duliajan. That's what All India headquarter is. So it's a pipeline which is evacuating first time the gas from Arunachal Pradesh, and we are supplying. We are also doing two more things. We are augmenting compression facilities of our small stranded gas fields, wherein through virtual pipeline we will supply to our geographical areas for our CGD customers. Another thing that we have done, and I must share with you with very, very sense
Where
of
are you
satisfaction.
doing this? The CGD?
We have,
that's compressed gas for
we have
commercial
actually,
use.
correct. We have two things. As part of the gas-based economy, we have taken a position of our compressed gas geographical areas, compressed gas distribution geographical areas, primarily for CNG and PNG. Along with HPCL, we have a Kolhapur GA, and along with HPCL, we also have Kurukshetra and Ambala. That apart, we have about 7 GAs in Arunachal Pradesh with I think BPCL, and with HPCL with it is Nagaland. With Government of Assam state enterprises, we have our presence in Tripura and in Assam. So to do that, the stranded gas we could push through virtual pipeline, which is primarily canisters. Another interesting thing that we have done to reduce our flaring and accrue value, we have just taken a very bold step of creating a natural gas storage facility, wherein the depleted fields of Oil India Limited, which has got a containment characteristics, re-established and reaffirmed. So we are producing crude oil, the associated gas, if you don't evacuate, you store, and then again you can re-pump it out. So that also we have taken a step. So these are those, I would not say big steps, but steps of immense significance to enhance gas-based economy.
So, talking about enhancing, I mean, rejuvenation of wells is one of your current sort of major projects. So, tell us about that, and what does it take? And I think you have partnerships as well to bring in technical expertise and so on. But if I were to, again, it's a layman's question too. Wells are old. I mean, maybe they've been around for more than 100 years, but it is technically possible to go and find new reserves within that. So what does it take, and what is Oil India doing right now in
I
this?
would take immense pride in saying that Oil India has mastered the art of reservoir management. And when we say so, we have been doing it since ages, and these mature fields, while as an active exploration, we are establishing deeper formations and near place exploration pools. The existing mature reservoirs, we do a lot of significant workovers. So those workovers primarily involve hydrofrac, where the best-in-class service providers of the globe are working with Oil India Limited. One of the first of its kind IOR which we are doing is, I would say that I would say it as an EOR rather, not IOR. In terms of steam injection, we have got some good heavy oil sitting at a depth of 1060 meters, and that is something which we are doing in Rajasthan, where we are injecting 100% pure steam and 360-degree temperature. The steam is injected to a depth of 1060, and globally, as I understand, this has been done for 600 to 800 meters, not 1050. So this is one of its kind, and after injection of steam for 14 days, you switch off the steam, and first the condensate, the water comes out, then the crude flows. In a similar manner, we are also flooding carbonated water for our fields to enhance mobility of the hydrocarbon molecules. And we are also now working on, and I think the tender is already done, we are in the process of shortlisting, working on something called a co-mingled production. Normally oil occurs in stacks of sand packs with intercalated with shale, and you would actually decant the lowermost sand and then come upstairs and then took the secondmost sand. Now we are working on a continuous co-mingled production between the two sand packs. That would enhance the production potential also. So these are the interventions which we are working. In fact, we are also having something called a plunger lift. We are working on it. For a very heavy crude oil, we are using some electric heaters to make the crude mobile and then come to the surface.
Let me take a small detour since you talked about the fracking process. And when we talk about fracking, we talk about the United States, and there's a new government which has talked about a national energy emergency. What does that mean for us?
If you look at the oil and gas scenario of United States of America, they have changed the oil and gas sector dynamics. Earlier, a country with such a vast resources was importing, and last couple of years they have become a net exporter. So now, instead of having regas terminals, they have got liquefying terminals coming in, and they are supplying to the globe. With this particular approach of the current dispensation, which the current dispensation in USA, I am looking forward to having more crude oil and natural gas available to the world, because the recent discoveries will take some time to come on stream, and this augurs well for an economy called India, because we are always an energy hungry country, and today while we source oil and gas from about 30 plus source countries, so and USA would be one of them, and this is a better news for us.
So let me come back now to Oil India Limited. We've talked about the landscape. Now, the landscape that you've talked about so far is mostly in the fossil fuel space. A lot of work that you're also doing is in the new energy or the renewable energy space.
Yes.
So I have two kinds of questions there. One is, what is the strategic thinking here? How do you divide your, let's say, attention, resources, time, investments between the two? And secondly, of course, what is it that you're currently working on, and also what personally excites you?
Personally, I think that Oil India, while will continue to be a major E&P player and will pursue the exploration as the next destination, India should be the next exploration destination for the world. We are also looking at green energy portfolio. So recently, we have already got the approval of Government of India regarding a new subsidiary called Oil India Green Energy Limited. We are in the process of operationalizing that. As part of that portfolio, we will enhance our current portfolio of renewables multiple times. So recently we had some MOU with Government of Rajasthan, where we are looking at about 1000 megawatt of solar in discussion with government of Rajasthan. So as it crystallizes, we'll be able to share more. We have an JV with government of Assam where the initially 25 megawatt of solar power is under consideration, but going forward government of Assam has already approved 640 plus megawatts. We are also looking at another beautiful thing which is called the compressed biogas. Now, compressed biogas is a concept on which we have been mandated to do about 25 of them. This augurs well with Honorable Prime Minister's vision to enhance the gas as the primary energy mix in the Indian economic sector, where currently we are doing about 6% now. With the geographical areas for CGD with us, we see a lot of integration of CGD commitments through the CBG component. So, while natural gas will be supplied through the conventional sources, this will also supplement, and the feedstock would primarily be the municipal solid waste. So, it integrates very well with Swachh Bharat mission of Government of India and also the Satat scheme of Government of India. And this also augurs well with the smart city concept of the urban local bodies. So that all the three things are falling in place, and we are establishing a value chain where we will create the segregation, natural gas, the CBG gas, and then that will be PNGRB spec to be pushed into the natural gas pipeline. So that's something interesting we are doing. This besides, there are two more things I would like to share which excites me most.
Can I come back to CBG
Sure.
for a second?
Yes.
So I know that there were also budgetary allocations for CBG in the last budget. But to the user, is there any difference, or it's just gas that is powering?
To the user, it has absolutely no difference.
Okay. I mean, in terms of combustibility, or there's no, okay.
Absolutely nothing, because there are two ways of looking at it. You could have a PNGRB spec gas which can go to the CNG or PNG, or you could have a lesser C1. This is basically CH4. So, C1 component up to about 90% that can power your power plants actually. So, both has got usage. As far as CNG is concerned, it does not matter to the customer. But coming back to the two more exciting things that we are also working on geothermal energy. Given the fact that we understand the subsurface better in terms of our E&P exposure, we see there is a potential sitting there with the deep wells that we have drilled, and we have those depleted fields. Because the temperature gradient as we drill deeper, the temperature gradient enhances. So, we are having collaboration in certain studies are underway. That is one piece. But the most interesting is, while we have been continuing to produce hydrocarbon, the pore spaces which was otherwise holding on to the natural gas can be used as a sequestration possibility of CO2. So, given the fact that we have a commitment of 2070 at part of our net zero, and as Oil India we have a target of 2040, and recently we have become a member of OGDC, we would be the solution providers to the unabated CO2 which is being emitted by the other sectors, so that the CO2 can be captured and sequestered in the depleted fields of these PML or PEL areas, where not so successful wells can be converted to sequester and inject CO2. So, that is something which excites me most as far as the alternative energy.
Is this happening anywhere else in the world?
This is happening this is happening, yes, this is happening in other parts of the globe, and we have recently commissioned a study, and the results are very, very promising. We are going to take up a pilot level study, a pilot plant, demonstration plant in one of our field.
Right. And you said there was one more area.
There is, this is the one, and then of course the geothermal one.
So, if you were to look at the next few years, now let me address the let's say the challenge, the energy challenge from a slightly different point of view. Energy security is something that everyone has to think of, particularly those who are in the business of producing energy and drilling for it, oil and so on. What are your thoughts when you sort of wake up in the morning or go to sleep at night?
When I wake up in the morning, I would always prefer to see we have a major discovery in the country. And when I go to sleep, I also dream that I should have a morning with a major discovery. So that's the prime objective as an E&P operator. And the geologist in me tells me that yes, that is a possibility. It's a matter of chance when we are going to strike, because we are looking at Mahanadi onshore. But most interestingly, what we foresee is the recent no-go zone which has been unveiled by the government. The deep and ultra-deep waters of Indian offshore is now available for exploration. Earlier, that was not available. So, by removing the restriction, we have about 1 million square kilometer of area. So, OLP 9, we have been successful in securing some exploration acreages in the deep and ultra-deep waters, and OLP 10, which I am sure government would launch soon, and so that would also open up more areas. And as part of it, there are two things which Government of India is doing. Government of India has already acquired lot of data in terms of the exclusive economic zone of India through seismic campaign, where both the National Oil Company, ONGC and Oil India had joined and performed those assignments. Beyond that, recently government has taken a decision to undertake 4 parametric wells, which is primarily stratigraphic well or parametric well, which is drilled to a deeper depth to establish the database which would entice the external or the future or the possible explorers to look at India with the availability of encouraging data. So, Oil India and ONGC has been given this mandate to drill 4 stratigraphic wells, one in Andaman Nicobar Basin, one in Mahanadi Basin, one in Bengal Basin, and one in
So you're
Saurashtra
saying
Basin.
this is a well that whose primary objective is to collect data, not to find oil.
I would not say, because the geologist in me says while we would drill a well at a water depth of 3000 meter or 2000 to 3000 meter to a depth of 7000 meter, we better also look at the possibility of striking hydrocarbon, because that way you will get more encouragement. Materiality or otherwise, time will tell, but should you discover in terms of reporting hydrocarbon, the formation depth, the thickness of the sand stack are subsequent. So, while we have chosen those locations, we have been very careful in choosing those locations. And one thing which I would like to share with you, recently we had signed a collaborative framework with Total Energy to partner with Oil India Limited as a technology service provider to undertake one of the stratigraphic well drilling, where we would like to have the international best practices while performing the drilling and interpretation of those records, which we would gather either through the drill cuttings or through the geophysical logging that we will do. So, all that is happening. And the third thing that we see is Government of India is also encouraging through various collaborative processes and systems, say investor meets or organizing something called IEW, to have attention of the global IOCs and NOCs to collaborate with the national oil companies of India and pursue the exploration campaign.
What's the geologist in you looking for?
One discovery in India, and preferably.
Okay, so that's, let's say, the outcome. But before that, what else? I mean, is there some cool technology somewhere, some experiment that's going on that you feel?
I would say we are looking at enhancing our exploratory efforts. And when I say our exploratory efforts, it's supplemented by high-end data processing, which AI driven, which we are doing. And the quantum of exploration gives me more seismic exploration, gives us more data, but we are restless. We are also running a campaign of airborne gravity radiometry that is also going to reveal more information in the northeastern part of the country. And beyond that, we are actually reaching out to all our partners to enhance our drilling rig resources. The rig count gives us more drilling opportunities. The rig count gives us drilling deeper opportunity. So, that way also we are creating a healthy R by P ratio for ourselves. But those are discoveries, but from an intent point of view, a large discovery is a need of the time. So we must explore and explore.
Right. And maybe the last question in this space, so there's a lot of focus on startups. Not that many, I'm sure, in core energy, but there are quite a few. Is there anything that you're looking out for, something that interests you, where you feel you could work with, let's say, young companies or young engineers like yours once you were?
We are actually having a very active startup program where we encourage, and I must tell you, last IEW and the before IEW also, those startups were encouraged in the IEW platform, and they have been primarily in the downstream and midstream part of it. How do we enhance flow assurance? How do we clean the tank farms? But the startups, in terms of technology adoption, we are getting access to global technology adoptions. Like I would say, there is something called a fishbone technology, and there is something called this plunger lift. So we have a technology induction board. So global technology players, they would submit their proposal, or we will request them to submit their proposal. We have a system of evaluation. We take them on board. It's not startup. We take them on board. Either we would adopt it to experiment in one of the wells or so. If successful, we replicate it. So that is a very continuous process, and in some of the cases, like we are also getting successful.
So last question. So, when you must have passed out of IIT, finding oil, which equaled energy, was a national mission. It still is, but maybe not for everyone. And maybe young engineers want to go and join Infosys or, work behind computer screens. How could you change that?
It's a kick that you get when you get hydrocarbon on the surface, whether or you get natural gas. So we are actually reaching out to our catchment areas. We have enhanced our recruitment process. I must share this. This is an interesting question, and I want to reach out to everybody because the young students we are looking forward to recruit, and our recruitment season is on. And we are also encouraging students to visit IEW, by the way. So we have created a construct called pooled campus interview, where we have identified these are the major domains on which we would recruit. We are reaching out to the placement officers and requesting IITs and NITs or the universities to send the best of the team who are willing to work in Oil India to our field headquarters. So they are our guest in our operational field, where they are there for 3 days. They are shown the entire operations, and they are all geologists or geoscientists or mechanical engineers or electrical engineers. Then we do that interview, and then we ask them, if you are keen, join. After their joining, we have also introduced something very interesting as part of the induction program, that we are taking them to all our operational areas pan India. There they are getting a hands-on about Oil India Limited, but most importantly, they are today getting to work on the entire value chain of energy, because today we have NRL with us. So earlier we were not having the downstream part of it. So today somebody joins Oil India Limited, they have an opportunity not only to work on various verticals within, but also all the verticals of the entire value chain of oil and gas sector. Plus we have assets abroad, and we are seriously pursuing a couple of assets in collaboration with our colleagues in OVL and BPRL and BPCL, a couple of assets. So we also provide opportunities to our officers and geologists and technologists overseas training in terms of exposure. So when we invest in our overseas assets, we don't look at it as investment only, we also look at it as a learning curve or capacity building. So that is something which offers, and to tell you, our attrition rate is very, very low. So we are comfortable in that particular sense, but I would request through this medium of yours to all the young minds to join this beautiful segment or sector called oil and gas, more specifically the upstream sector.
That's a wonderful note to end on. Thank you so much, Dr. Rath.
Thank you very much, and it was a pleasure talking to you.
My pleasure too.